Even before that, I don't know. I don't know when we started talking online. I guess it was after that, but I feel like I've been following your music for so long. I know we know so many of the same people. It's like I felt like I knew you for a long time, you know?
Yeah, honestly, I cannot remember the exact time or date frame, but I always had you on my social and been following you.
Yeah. No, same here, man. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Where are you at right now?
So I am in Toronto, in Canada, but I go back and forth between here and Los Angeles, California. I try to balance the life between two countries. Sometimes when I want to get out of the roariness of LA, I come here.
Yeah.
So I spend my time here, and I lived here for quite a long time during COVID also. So, and I'm a Canadian citizen now. So
hey, that's great.
I call it home. Thank you.
No, that's great, man. Yeah. I love Toronto's such a cool city.
Yeah, it's like New York of Canada. So it's very finance and like business district. It's that city, but also you have the art side of it, which is the Toronto Film Festival that takes place here. So
Yeah.
there are both worlds that goes on here. But I love it. It's I live in the suburbs of Toronto, so it's not as crazy with traffic and
Right.
Craziness. So I spend my quiet time in the nature or in front of my computer writing music.
Yeah, Toronto's so fun to me, man, because you're right. It is the New York of Canada, but then it's also Canadian. So like, it's just like nice and pleasant. And, it's like all of the craziness of New York, but then with just like nicer people,
Definitely. I mean, there is that difference, obviously, when you cross the borders, because I go back and forth a lot. And I see things as a point of view of an immigrant, I wasn't born here. So it's not like I was born here and I'm going by the judgment of, I'm seeing Americans.
Right.
But I'm seeing myself as a person who immigrated to North America for a better life, like everyone who does it, who get out of Iran. And when I cross the border, it's not that Americans are not nice. It's just, for example, a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues in music industry do not have that many friends or coworkers or colleagues who've been through what I've been through. Versus in Canada, especially in Toronto, everyone's immigrant. Like you don't have. Yeah, for example, in the neighborhood that I live, the house in front of us, they're a Chinese family. Next to me, there's a Russian guy living here. I learned a bit of Russian during COVID just because we were just on the balcony and we were talking. So I would say majority of the city in Toronto, I can say for myself, are immigrants versus in LA, you see American people and you see like foreigners like myself, who are there, like French people, but you don't see much immigrants. Or maybe the EDM industry, the bass music industry that I work in and I am part of doesn't have as much like maybe Iranian immigrants.
Yeah, I mean that's almost certainly true. The only other person I know is Nostalgics. I don't know if you ever talked to her, but
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. She's the only other one from Iran that I know of.
Yeah. Yep. She's part of the house music industry, so it's that side of it. But in bass music, I still haven't found. There's few of friends who I think they were born in US, but they are originally Persian, Blank Face and Affinity. I take the pleasure to talk to them in Farsi whenever I see them at the events. And also another big friend of mine who helped a lot, Persian friend, Brian Bayati, who is the tour manager of Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, okay.
He's also Persian. It feels very good when you switch the language to the mother tongue sometimes when you see them at events or at shows.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, when you first moved to North America, did you know English?
I did know. I learned a lot English back in Iran. Why? Because of music industry.
Oh, really?
If it wasn't for music industry, I would have never had this much progression with my language. Same with French. I had to learn French because I was coming to Canada and I had to learn it. It's not that I'm proficient. I just know it, in an intermediate level.
But were you learning it in school, or was this like teaching yourself because you knew you were going to come over?
So in Iran, you learn English from grade 6 until end of high school.
Okay.
But the English that they teach is just like, this is the door, this is the window, my name is. I had to go to private institutions. So I had private institution. I had teachers who were IELTS teachers. So they were really professional and proficient. And for French, I also had teachers who were teaching Canadian French because it's different than France French. So I learned them both. And my mom is also a teacher. So our family has my genetics has that teaching and being around teachers, history. So, and also I love reading books. I love educating myself on different subjects. So, it was hard. If I say it was easy, I would be lying. It was really hard at times.
Yeah.
But I had to do it. Why? Because I wanted to communicate with the outer world. I wanted to communicate with my SoundCloud friends. When Getter texted me like 10 years ago or 11 years ago on SoundCloud, I had to put everything he said in Google Translate,
right.
And just like respond back to him. So, and when I was communicating with my managers or agents, I always had this gap and I always felt shy of talking to them. So, learning language helped, breach that, insecurity about being shy. And then what happened is I made tons of friends. And another thing that helped with improving my, not language, not English proficiency, but speaking, because many people say, oh, you learned English, how you speak so well. Here's the thing. What you learn in the books, it's not the same thing when you're in a society. So what helped me was actually Costco during COVID. I would go to Costco and then I would talk with the cashiers. And that helped me pretty much, with my accent, with how I talk, the expressions. The expressions were like really something that I loved learning. Looked up to a lot of memes, trying to understand decode memes.
Yeah, that's a whole other one.
Yeah. It was fun. It was very fun. And now I'm very happy to be able to communicate to you and to other people, who are watching this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, which came first? You putting out like a lot of music with North American labels, or you moving to North America? Like, were you already releasing music before you moved here?
Yes, sir. I started Soltan 10 years ago. So this is 2024 is 10-year anniversary of Soltan. Before that, here's the thing. Let me give you a bit of background.
Please.
Because EDM is censored in Iran and because of US sanctions, you cannot really release your music worldwide. You cannot get them on Spotify, YouTube, etc. And we use VPN for all those services. Technically, being an international artist in that country does not work unless you make music that is legal, like that is within government's acceptance.
Which is, just to make sure I understand. So, I mean, Iran, obviously, like there's moral issues, I would imagine, like they have morality built into the laws so that certain music is not acceptable. But are you also saying that, like, from as an Iranian artist putting out music yourself, that also US or other countries have certain laws that block Iranian artists from putting their music out there? Okay,
yes,
interesting.
Because it's the same concept as Russia and Cuba and Venezuela. The second DSPs knows that you're putting out music as Iranian, they do one of the two things. One, block, just remove it from DSPs, or two, you won't get any royalties because the SWIFT system does not work in Iran. Like we do not have credit card, we don't have PayPal, we have nothing. It's been like that since 1979. My parents went through it, my grandpa, myself. And so coming back to the main question, I discovered Skrillex in 2011 by watching 2011 Grammy when deadmau5 got nominated, Skrillex got nominated. And there was this Persian TV channel that would technically do a live translation of Grammy, because I didn't know English that well, so they would do a live dubbed version of what's going on. So I loved this guy with the helmet and deadmau5. So I took the name down. I had a Nokia phone, so I put the name down on my messages. And then I had allowance of using my mom's laptop to connect to internet one day per week. So I would connect with a dial-up internet, and then I would just Google deadmau5, Skrillex, and then relatable names, go to like Google Images, see who are these guys. And that's how I started discovering electronic music. I would listen to dance, hard dance when I was a kid, because my uncle would play it in his car. It was a cool, techno is very famous in Iran. Despite everything that goes on, they love techno.
Sure.
But I was like 6, 7. I didn't know what is techno, but discovering Skrillex and deadmau5 and Kill the Noise, that was me discovering something that is called electronic. What is dubstep? What is electro house? As my knowledge would increase, I had a bigger love for this, and I said, okay, you know what? I want to do what Skrillex does. So I went to our local software CD shop, and I said, hey, I want to be a DJ. And the guy looked at me. I was 12, 13. And the guy looked at me and said, look, this is a CD. It's called Virtual DJ. You install, and then you have a software. So I get it. I'm like, cool, now I can become Skrillex. So I just started messing with the software and see, okay, I can mix and stuff. I can DJ, but still, I don't know how the magic happens. So I started to do more research. And then I realized there is a thing called music production. Skrillex doesn't make his music in virtual DJ. It's music production. Then I got introduced to FL Studio. Then I come from a Yahoo Messenger background. I know many Americans come from MSN. we didn't have MSN in Iran. Yahoo Messenger was more popular among the population.
It's like the WhatsApp of overseas.
Yeah. So I found this group chat on Yahoo Messenger called Iranian music producers. So I just joined like ASL,
right? And wait, how old were you at the time? About?
I was like, this was 2011.
Okay.
I was 12 back then.
God, yeah. Okay, perfect.
And then this group that I found, there were a bunch of guys who are now pretty big in Iran as music producers, but they don't do EDM. They just make pop music because, as I said, EDM doesn't make money over there. It's pop music that makes money. One of them, his name was Aron. He's known, his EDM alias is called Aron H. Back in 2013, 2 years after I got to know him, he released a track on Mousetrap. He was like huge. He would make psytrance like Infected Mushroom. My mind was blown. And we became friends. We're still good friends. He's still back in Iran, but he left EDM because there was no money for him. He started to give me like hope and say, yes, do this, continue. It's okay. Yes. I kept going, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this while I go to middle school. We don't go to high school after primary school in Iran. We go to middle school, then high school.
Sure.
But apparently that was my time. And now they changed it to North American system. So like grade 6 to 12. So for Gen Zs,
I went to middle school too. I think so. Yeah. We still do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this and have fun. So I would make random stuff and I would try to copy others or find any tutorials, cool videos. And I came across this guy on YouTube called Seamless R.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I owe him most of my early knowledges in music. I had a chat with him last year, I had the balls to finally text him and say, hey, thank you so much for everything. Like I learned so many things from you.
Wow. That probably meant a lot to him.
Yes. I look forward to meet him one day in person. I would just watch him because again, the English was a problem there. I would just watch him copy what he did in FL Studio and go on with my day. Then I started to think about putting my stuff on SoundCloud. I was like, let's do it. I made this account called Mr. Sholex and I would upload like random stuff I would make or the bedroom tests I would do, copying people like Barely Alive, Skrillex, I would just post it on SoundCloud. I posted, opened Facebook, joined producer groups, became friends with people on SoundCloud chatting, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody chats on SoundCloud anymore. Then one day, there was this wedding that we were going with family. I was waiting for other people to come by. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to my room, check what's up in SoundCloud today before we go. So I turn on my VPN, go to SoundCloud, and I see one of this bedroom tests has like 10K plays. I'm just refreshing. Like, what is it? Someone goes from like maybe 200, 300 plays to like 10K.
Yeah.
I realize that I have a message too from someone called Getter. And Getter back then was the Getter that he was at Firepower before he goes to Oslo.
Right.
And he was like, who the fuck are you? Love your shit. And I was just, I was going crazy. I was going mental in my room. Google Translate, "Hi, sir. My name is Sholex. It's a pleasure. It's an honor."
Yeah.
So he reposted that track. He got that much play. Since then, it just came. People just came. The people that we know today as music producers, like friends, Tisoki, Maroda, Phase One, we became all friends on SoundCloud, following each other. And then I found my first manager. Then what happened is, now that you have a platform, you have few friends that support you, and you have a label called Firepower that is, you have someone from Firepower that is reaching out to you. That means, oh, you're about to achieve this dream. Like, now what? Now comes two things. One, you don't know English. Two, how come you can work from here? Because, well, we all know EDM is electronic dance music. You make music for people to dance, and you don't just stay in the room, make music for people and just stay in the room. That's it. But that was my reality, is that, I'm just a bedroom guy, and I will never be able to DJ. So, but at that point in my life, I was happy with what I had. I just kept going. So that's when I started releasing music. I was in high school. I started releasing music, and then it kept going on, and we had so many show offers in US, but I couldn't go. Right. So kept on until one day, I realized that if I go on, that will be it. There should be a sacrifice here. Either I become like this and kind of fade away, or I just sell everything that I have, save the money, pay lawyers, move out. And that's what I did. And I sold a lot of the equipment that I had, paid lawyers. And then at that point, that was end of 2016, 2017, when I joined Never Say Die. And shout out Schism. He was a great mentor for me. He would just talk to me, even though I was far. He would just give me hope. And it was such an honor to be part of a label that people like Zomboy, Space Laces, and Must Die were just there,
Yeah, Never Say Die. I mean, it really was. I always talk about it as one, I wasn't part of it, but I was friends with a bunch of people who were, and you could really tell it was an actual community, beyond being a label. Like, there's been a few of those. Ausla was like that for a while. Mad Decent was like that for a while, but there's not a lot of them where you can really tell that it's actually like a family, to use an overused word,
Yeah. I was not physically there to like play the shows. For example, there was like Rotten Roll Tour from Zomboy, and you had the entire like label. I was so happy to just watch like videos. I still do that. I still watch videos on YouTube, or I was watching different people play my music. I really loved it, and it gave me more hope. It gave me more power. At that moment, I had only two choices to make: immigrate to Australia or immigrate to Canada, because Canada and Australia are two countries that take a lot of Iranian immigrants. Obviously not US. And, that was during Trump's era.
Yeah, so definitely not US.
Yeah. Australia is pretty far. So we said Canada to be close to US for touring purposes. And same with Europe. Australia is further from Europe as well. So we applied. I started going to English classes, like professional, like advanced English classes, learning French on the side, start selling my stuff to save more money. And then a lot of touring opportunities came that we were like, okay, how about we give it a shot? I started with Animals Music Festival in 2018 in France. So I got a Schengen visa to go to France while the immigration process was going on. That was going on for itself.
Was that your first show? Like, had you DJ'd at all?
That was my first EDM show in my life.
Wow.
Like, I've never been to an EDM show before.
Wow.
And it was my first time going to like a show that is my show.
Right. Yeah. Not only are you performing for the first time, but you're also just seeing an EDM show for the first time live.
Yeah.
What was that like? That's so crazy.
I cannot really describe it with words. I was speechless, but to me, it felt like I was always part of that community. Like I was part of there, but I couldn't express it physically. I'm
like it just felt comfortable. Like it felt like you fit. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Even now, when I see an intense amount of crowd for my shows or anything, I cannot really physically react. I just stand and like smile. It's like when people are singing happy birthday when you're about to blow the cake. You don't know what to do,
Yeah.
It's that kind of moments. Like I'm just looking, but internally it's like fire inside. I sweat a lot during that show. It was stressful, anxiety, all those things. And that was it. I realized, okay, maybe, it will work. So got the visas, moved to Canada, came by Toronto. Cool times. I went to festival in Montreal, took a train, super fun, met more of our friends. And then COVID happened.
Right.
I was about to apply for my US visa as the Canadian person, and then boom, COVID happened. So I'm like, guess what? I'm the bedroom guy again without any tours in US. Like I came here to do that and back to the bedroom. So it's like nothing has changed in my life. And now instead of paying everything in reals, I'm paying everything in Canadian dollars. There is lockdowns, families away.
Right.
Family tells you do not come here. You're just stuck, and all your American friends are making Discords, and Insomniac is doing like what is it, the
live
COVID shows?
And,
yes.
Oh yeah,
and
they
did
the like parking lot shows.
Yeah. So, and I was like, what I'm doing with my life, really? It's like one of those existential questions that you're like, okay, that's it. I'm spending my savings to go through these hard times. Luckily, one of the benefits of Canada, Ontario's government had a lot of COVID help reliefs, like a lot of what is it? Like a bursary, like grants that they were giving to small businesses who could not operate. For example, hospitality industry. So venues, DJs, musicians, hotels,
Of course.
So I took those, really helped. Canada's government, like besides the provincial government, Canada's government also helped. And then I felt better. Then I started creating YouTube tutorials. I was like, okay, We can make some YouTube tutorials here and there, to fill the time. And as the time was going, I felt more comfortable here. The Costco cashiers, the neighbors in the street, going for the walk in the trails, discovering different parts of the city by myself. That was super fun. That was cool. But the isolation was like something else.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you weren't here with any other family, right? Like, am I right that it's just you?
Yeah, I have like distant family here in Toronto, but they're like elders,
Right.
It's you cannot really hang out with elders. Plus, we were not seeing each other for COVID, obviously, because they are elders, But shout out Dr. Ozzy. We had a lot of cool studio sessions during COVID. He was like, just come here. It's okay. So I would go over to his place. We would jam. We had live streams together during COVID. We celebrated my birthday at his house. And I really thank him, for having me at his place during those times. And then, time went by, and then US introduces vaccines, but then Canada acts slow on vaccines. So US is open, Canada is still closed. Then that's like real problem.
Yeah.
Because I was really at this point of what am I doing? And I cannot get government help until end of my life. And I was like, I let it go. I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Montreal and I'm going to go to university or do something with my life because clearly US is open. I don't have visa. Visas take so long because it's still COVID and the embassy have a lot of backlogs. And my representative at AFM, American Federation of Musicians, called and said, we'll send your paycheck back because it's been a year and it's outdated. Wow. So everything was in shambles. And it was not really my fault. It was not really their fault. It was just the circumstance,
Right.
It's nobody's fault. It's just how the situation was, and everyone was trying their best to like go through these times. So what I did, I moved to Montreal. I went to few classes at university over there. There were still Zoom classes, but it was fun. It was nice to actually see people, make new friends, improve my French. Then we're about to end 2021 and then 2022 comes and then, okay, Canada is getting open. Everything is cool. I applied for my visa. I got my US visa. My manager suggests me to actually move to California for a bit to see how I like it for myself. So April 2022, I moved to California. Man, I loved it. It was like, how can I describe it? It's like for Americans, going to a Disney World, they see like people that, they watch since they were a kid. It's like me finding, like we went to this Christmas party, the amount of DJ friends that I've met in real life, and they were like, oh my God, it's you. I'm like, right. I exist in real world too. I'm not the bedroom guy anymore. I'm out. That was really fun. That really made me to say, okay, I want to leave here. I want to spend my time here. It was tough with financial situation, but it went slowly. Then I had a tour offer by Ray Volpe. Then we started going on tour across US in 2022. So
was that was the first time in 2022 with Ray that you really like saw a lot of the United States?
Exactly. That was like my first time ever actually like a decent human traveling across US, not just coming, going, coming, going, you know, because I visited US as well, like end of 2021. I was just visiting my manager, but obviously I didn't have a visa. I couldn't just go on stage anywhere, just as a visitor, you know, because US for Canadians is a visa-free zone. So you could just go there.
I mean, that touring with Ray and just seeing so much of the country after, you know, close to a decade of like talking to people in the US and making music that was getting played in the US. That must have been wild, man. Just getting to see all those different places. Like, was there any part of it, any city or any experience that was like different from what you were expecting or surprising in a way?
Actually, pretty much the entire tour was a surprise. But memorable things when the tour happened is that it was the laser beam era. So 80% or like 90% of Ray's tour was sold out already, like when we were starting. I was really happy that this is happening. And we released our track Elbow Grease in the same EP. It was such a nice timing. I like that timing in my life. That timing was like really great. So I had one show in Thailand. So I was flying to Thailand, did the show. On the way back, I had flight's Wi-Fi. And when I was landing in LA, I was doing customs. Then I would be flying to Dallas to do the show with Ray. On the way, on the flight, Ray says, Dallas show is sold out. I'm like, okay, cool. It was at Stereo Live.
Yep.
So I go there, quite tired, the jet lag, you know, but the guy before me, I was watching him and I saw the crowd. They were crazy, man. I go on stage, people scream. I don't know how that happened. I just say, I was like, this is crazy. So I played the set. Towards the middle of set, they were just screaming. It was such a pleasant experience. And obviously, every time I DJ, I get better in microphone, shouting. Sometimes I stutter because of my language. Obviously, English is my second language. It's not my mother tongue.
I mean, I stutter too, and it's my first language, so you're fine.
So I was getting better with DJing. I was getting better with building a set. I was getting better at everything, but that experience was like out of this world. And also having Texas barbecue was like, man, it was really such a nice experience. And the night after we did the Stereo Live Houston, which was also sold out, that was also very good. But Dallas was just something else. Later that year, I returned to Houston again. I played at Rise Rooftop with Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, nice.
And that was also very, very cool experience because I was the opener. But the second I started playing, the room was filling up so quick. By the end of my set, I had like a huge crowd for a crowd picture.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, to be honest, those are some of my favorite sets is, you know, when you start playing, there's not as many people. And then by the end, it's really filled up. And I don't know, there's something about watching that happen over the course of the set. And then by the end, everyone, you know, the energy is so crazy. I mean, you know, sure, it feels great to play a set for a packed crowd the whole time too. But I don't know, there's something about those opening sets. Maybe it's just because you remember it then when you're playing better sets, but there's something about it. I kind of like those sets.
You know, usually with the sets that, you know, in the DJ world, there is the sets that you're like, okay, cool. I know this is my set time. People gonna be there. Let's just, you know, get the thing done and cool. You're prepped. And there is those like things like, it's an opening. Nobody's going to be there. I'm just going to improvise, you know, like improvisation set. And then it turns out the other way. It exactly turned the other way. It was like a full packed crowd. Same thing last year when I was playing at Nocturnal Wonderland in California. I had 2 sets in one day. One set was daytime, one set was nighttime for silent disco. I was like, okay, it's silent disco. Everyone's sleeping, man. Like, who stays awake at this time? My perception, I'm talking about my perception of things. I'm like, everyone's sleeping, everyone's dead tired from the heat. So I prep a playlist of just, cool, slow trap music like Troy Boy. And I'm like, cool, I'm just going to play that. The second I go on stage, boom, massive, like, what was it? Like 1,000 people who filled the entire, the lot that silent disco was going on. And it looked like the colony of bees with the headphones and the LED light.
Yeah, with the light up headphones. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so cool. And my manager looked at me and she was like, just play the normal set. So I ended up playing the actual normal set. So that is another thing about your perception as a DJ, that things don't go the way you think,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, man, there's so much in that whole picture you just painted, that whole journey. One thing I keep thinking about is, I've been a fan of your music for a long time, and a lot of your earliest stuff, I think it's the same reason like Getter hit you up back in the day, being like, who the fuck are you? Because so much of your music was, it was made well, right? Like the production quality was high, but it was really wild and out there. Some of the ideas, like some of your early stuff where you were doing a lot of like crazy vocal chopping and like processing vocal chops and that kind of stuff. And I used to play a bunch of those tunes, and then hearing you kind of talk about the, like where you were at in your life and how you were experiencing dance music, and that there was kind of this like online versus IRL separation because you couldn't fully participate yet. Like, do you think the fact that you were sort of like physically separated when you were starting to make all this music, did that change the style of the music? Or not necessarily the style, but like just the ideas you had were so crazy to me hearing them. And I wonder if part of that comes from the fact that you were sort of isolated when you were making those early tracks.
Yeah, that's a nice topic to talk about. Not many people say this, but it's more of like this topic, to answer it very in detail. It's a topic of philosophy of artistry. And when I was in Iran, because I did not see anything in real life, I had a different mindset than now. Like the second I came here, I started to go to festival, go to shows. I realized that, you can take things hard, but, it will just consume your time. For example, back then I would be making like 1 track a year because I was putting so much time in every little detail. That's why things were perfect.
Right.
Yes, things are perfect, cool. But nowadays that I see things in real life, I see things like ticket counts, labels demand, how the sets are, my colleagues, my coworkers, my DJ friends playing their sets. That changes because now it's not 2014 or 1980s that Pink Floyd would take 2 years to write an album and they would come with the best thing ever. Now you have to finish music so quick, and I can do that, but I would be having 1 track a year, and I feel like the philosophy of artistry has changed across the entire music industry. I'm not talking about EDM. I'm talking about hip hop. I'm talking about pop music. I'm talking about not jazz necessarily, but well,
No, I know
EDM,
what you
yes.
mean. I mean, it's kind of in the streaming era, it's a little bit more of like quantity over quality.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way.
And
yeah.
Yeah. And to add one more thing about these crazy ideas, if I had back then, and I still, try to give a good track to my audience, is that this is my own belief, my own philosophy, is that I do not like to repeat things that I've done before. Meaning, if I make a respace that I use in a track now, I'm not going to use it a year from now. So if I hear people say, oh, can you make tracks like your 2016? And my answer is no, because if I use the sounds from back then what did I learn today? What Soltan of 2024 did learn in this year? And if I do not evolve, it means like my brain will just stuck.
Right.
Doesn't matter if the sound back then was good or bad. What matters is that I learned something. I used it in a track. I used it in a proper way. Cool. I learned that trick. Now I need to learn another trick. For me, music is more of an educational thing rather than, oh, this sounds cool, I'm just going to reuse it,
Yeah. And I mean, that's something I was going to say too. Like even a track like Serpent King that you just put out with Good Vibrations. I mean, that to me, it's interesting to hear you talk about that, you don't like spend as much time obsessing over every detail in a track anymore. Because Serpent King, to me, I was like, it's so good, but it's also, it seems like you've leveled up, even from where you were at before. Maybe you've figured out how to spend less time on a track, but just work more efficiently and like more focused. Because I don't know, like again, Serpent King, which is a track I really like, to me, I can hear echoes of things you've done in the past. Like you've always done really interesting stuff with percussion and sort of having percussion be like the focus of a drop and that kind of thing. But even this felt like a new level of it. Like it felt like you really sort of focused in on whatever the 2024 sound of Soltan is.
Thank you. I try, as I said, I try to have new things. I'm a constant buyer of the new plugins, new things, new techniques of sound design, new techniques of recording that I've never done before. So I get bored very easily. I need to entertain myself with something new. Which is cool.
I feel like part of it, not to cut you off there, but like I feel like part of it too is, some of it has to be just, different influences, different ideas that you have, like whether it's coming from Iran, whether it's even just living in Canada or traveling more recently. Like I feel like your influences and the ideas that you have, it's refreshing for bass music. There's not a lot of people making music that sounds quite like yours. And it's worth pointing out to me because in bass music especially, I feel like a lot of it ends up being the same. Like a lot of people, it sounds weird, but I think it's true that a lot of people are intentionally kind of making same sounding music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think you're doing that. So it's worth pointing out.
Yeah, exactly. It just comes to the philosophy of that artist, of how they want to express, because art is a medium of expression. So if they want to express it in the same sound that they used before, that's okay. There is no problem with that. The community is here for all of us to embrace. I try to, on the technical side, as I said, I try to learn new things and do different things. For example, one day I wake up, I decide to make funk music. Like I have funk tracks that I wrote. It has nothing to do with EDM. It helps me with my skills as a music producer. So I don't call myself a dubstep producer. I call myself a music producer. So if one day I sit in a studio with, let's take an example, Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson says, I want a rock track, I can write a rock track for him. You know, I don't want to, as I said, I don't want to keep my technical levels at the same level. And about the influences, I always took influence from few things. One, where I come from, the difficult life that I endured, and now things are getting easier. Life never gets easier, let's be honest, but you become mature to deal with them in a way that is easier for you. And as we grow up and as we get older, these obstacles get out of your way. New obstacles coming, you just take them out. I take inspiration from where I come from. I take inspiration from Persian culture and Persian history. I read a lot. I educate myself a lot on history. And right now I'm in my phase of taking inspiration from ancient Persian history and poetry. Serpent King was one of the tracks that is the history. It's a part of history of Iran. It's coming from an epic book of poetry called Shahnameh poems. The original book right now is in Museum of Florence in Italy. It's one of the world's longest poems. This poet, Ferdowsi, the Persian poet, took 31 years to write the book. Wow. And the book technically describes the history of Persian Empire before Arabs invade Iran. It's more of like reviving the Persian culture, reviving the Persian language, because at some point in history, around 1,400 years ago, Iran's language was converted to Arabic and the religious was converted to Islam. So people were kind of forgetting their roots. So this poet, kind of helped spreading the message that, hey, this is our identity. So this book has a lot of importance in Iran. And one of the tales is the history of Serpent King. Serpent King, apparently, from what the book said, the poem says he was not Persian, but he ruled over Persia, and he was just a normal guy, but the evil would persuade him a lot and would make him to do bad things, terrible things. One was to kill his own father, get on the throne. And then once he's on his throne, there is this chef that makes a really good meal for him. And he tells the chef, "What can I do for you, Mr. Chef, after you made this delicious meal?" And the chef says, "I only want to kiss your shoulders." He's like, "That is weird, but okay." He kisses his shoulders. He vanishes. That was the evil. And now two cobra snakes get out of his shoulders. And then he's like, what is going on? He tries to cut them with like knife or sword. Every time he cuts them, they would rose back like a flower, and they try to attack him. And he calls everybody in the palace. He's like, what are we supposed to do? And one evil comes back in a form of a chemist or a doctor or a wise man, says, hey, the only way for you to tame them would be to give them human brain 2 times a day. So he starts killing this Serpent King. He starts killing the innocent people.
Wow.
He starts killing peasants, killing farmers to feed the snakes. And that was kind of a start of a civil war against the Serpent King by people and by this blacksmith called Kaveh. And apparently by the end of the poem, Kaveh and the entire blacksmith community were able to penetrate into the palace and take him to a location, apparently to a cave, and just he's dead. He vanishes. So that was the story of Serpent King. And there are a few key timelines in my life that made me go through that route for writing this track. One is my grandpa's death in 2020. And I could not really go to Iran for the funeral since I told you it was COVID.
Right.
So I went for the anniversary. The 1 year later, we do in Muslim, the Shia culture, they mourn the day of burial. They mourn the 3rd, 7th, 40th, and the year. So I went for the year, and my grandfather was the only member of our family who knew French. He studied in France, and he was a highly intellectual person. He would always advise me to read books, and I decided to kind of dedicate what I do to, like what I do with Soltan's branding, to really just get into history, culture. And then I chose Shahnameh and epic names for the tracks of my songs. And that was the start. And then I was like, okay, let's do this real recording of percussion. So I played darbuka, conga, in studio back in Iran a few days after. Yeah. It's the Serpent King, the first drop that you're hearing, that's actually me playing the percussions.
Did you know how to play? Had you learned?
I didn't learn anything academically, to be honest with you. I just learned because my friends had it, and I love playing percussion. So I know how to play, but I don't know academically. So my techniques are not good. So I did a bunch of phrasings and patterns on metronome. Then at home, I chopped them, just, quantized, and then made a loop. Then I layered with djembe libraries that I had from Contact, just layered all of them together. And that's how the first drop came together. So I tried to do something, that is kind of cool. And I've never done before, working with a drop of acoustic instruments, not synths. If there was like synths layered, but mostly the main element was what I played.
Wow. I mean, yeah, thanks for telling me the whole story of that poem, too. I love that. There's something, it's interesting, like all of that, like not just the poem itself and not just your grandfather's passing and your experience of going out there to mourn him a year later and recording yourself in Iran, like all of that, it has so much deep meaning. And I'm always fascinated how all of that can come together and then just sort of be encapsulated. Like some part of that you're able to put into an actual song that then comes out and people can hear. And there's something to that, man. I mean, so many like songs throughout history have some kind of interesting backstory that way. And I always wonder how much of that is why those are the songs that we're drawn to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. To me, again, art is a medium of expression. I don't do this because, dubstep is cool. For me, I really embrace it. I love to put work into what I do, and I love to just let my feelings drive it. Obviously, I'm not the expert at things like, maybe I don't have the DJing experience that some higher level people have. I don't have as much DJing experience, but with my production experience, I try to do my best and give whatever I do, I try to really give the best thing to the people as much as I can. If something is beyond my capacity, then, I can't. If I have a tight deadline and I cannot meet my own standards for my own tracks, that's like nothing I could do about it. But I really
hear
try
you, but
to,
I think your standards are high enough such that even if you don't necessarily meet them, nobody else is going to be able to tell. Not only that too, but I think it's cool that you've sort of carried on, I guess we could call it like a family tradition of, you're putting out tutorials and sample packs. And in your own way, I think you are teaching people and showing people your process too, which is, especially considering, that your mom is a teacher and that, learning and learning history and studying this stuff clearly is important to you. So I don't know, man. I think it's cool you're kind of continuing that tradition in your own way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just try, we don't know what's happening in future. We can only learn from the past, and history for me, it's always fascinating. I can learn from the past, but Serpent King is a part of a bigger body of work, which is an EP that is coming out later. I cannot say when, but later. It's coming out, and the entire theme of this EP is it's inspired by that road trip. The entire 2021 journey that I had, and I started the tracks back then, but I finished it this year. So there was like this gap, and the gap was me touring, not having a production laptop. I always worked on PC, and then I realized, when you're touring, you got to have a laptop to produce, So I'm very excited for you to hear the rest. And about the tutorials, this is my own personal belief. I did not have the resources to learn things as easily as I told you earlier. I want people to have those resources to learn freely. It is important. Maybe I went through a hard time, but somebody else shouldn't go through a hard time. So YouTube, it's free for everyone. Obviously, generates the creator money, but it's free for you to check out. It's free for everyone to check out. Nowadays, I try to make more reels, so quick style of breakdowns of how I construct the songs. I try to do more, and I try to do with different genres, as I mentioned. Like right now, I'm working on a house one, and I try to deconstruct pretty quick so people can see. And then when one of them has way more views, I take that, I turn it into a YouTube tutorial in a longer form so people can learn. But it is important for people to know that, hey, you have all these resources right now. Some people didn't have it, but I personally want to make sure that people have those resources now that I did not have.
I love it, man. I love it. I mean, dude, I'm so glad we got to talk and do this. And I feel like there's so many more things I could ask you, but I almost feel like we should just come back and do a second episode sometime.
Put it down.
Is there anything
in
else?
Person.
Is there anything else we should say about like new music coming? Obviously, you're touring. Obviously, anything else you want to get out there before we wrap this one up?
So there are a few things. Yes, as I said, I have more reels coming for different remixes, different style of music. I have my tour coming that starts, if this episode gets out in August, on August 31st, I have my first show of Crybaby Tour with Cyclops, the funny name, Crybaby Tour with Cyclops. I am playing on Arizona stuff, which is Tempe, Arizona. And also I am doing Buffalo in New York, which is like 2 hours away from here, not far.
Nice.
And also I'm playing Dance Festopia in September. If anyone who's watching this episode is from Kansas, Dance Festopia on September 6th. And pretty much that is the upcoming shows for the month of August and September. If anyone wants to check out my stuff or follow me or anything, you can go to sultansound.com or sultansound.ca, or you can go to any social media platform that you have at your discretion and just do /Soltan Sound. So for example, if you're on Instagram, you go instagram.com/Soltan Sound. Pretty easy and straightforward. And I also cannot wait to be in DC again to catch you up, Willy.
Yeah, man. Next time you're here, we definitely got to hang.
Yes. We got to go to Persian restaurant. I want to give you Persian food.
Hey, let's do it. I'm down.
Beautiful. Amazing. Cool.
I love it.
That's all I had to say. Beautiful. Let's do it.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, man. I'm really glad we did it finally.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. As I said, I'm a watcher of your, podcast as well. I still learned a lot from the Peekaboo episode and Nitty Gritty back in 2021. So I watched a few episodes of yours as well. It was a pleasure. I'm very happy to be able to be here and talk with you for a bit.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. And right back at you, man. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And this is only the start, man. We'll do it again.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good one. Peace.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.